20s doing drugs, something like that. And you're listening to A Path to Wellness on rhinoonair.com, WSPF-DB.com. And I named I am Dr. Christopher Jackson, PhD, DOM, Florida. And I named the show A Path to Wellness, just like the practice that I run and have been running for quite a while, called A Path to Wellness. And the philosophy of it is to help people not just, treat a specific illness, but to help people on a path to wellness, to improve their lives, really improve their lifestyles. So, and speaking of improving lives, what I wanted to do the show on today is our concept of aging, because we have so much of this bias about aging, and I keep hearing people talking about getting old, and all the things that come with getting old. But I question that, and I question whether that has to be. I question whether there is a certain way we have to become when we get older. And we can look at some examples, Dirk Pearson, Jack LaLanne, getting up in their age and being very youthful. 90-year-olds who run around like 20-year-olds. So it's not, in my opinion, about aging as much as it is about our care of ourselves. And some of the first things that happen in terms of changes that occur early on that start us down that line, you could say, or down that path, are that some hormone levels start dropping. Okay, for example, DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, or androsterone. It is a precursor hormone to the creation of other hormones, including testosterone. And when we start seeing those levels drop, we start seeing some of the signs of aging, to a certain extent. And the longer it goes and the longer we allow the low levels to exist, the further down that path we go. And this is true for many things. So if we look at one of the things we tend to associate with aging would be bone and joint disorders, right? We have this tendency to think of, granny walking with a cane. We think about people who can't get around very well or are walking around very slowly. It takes them, 5 minutes to walk a block, So this kind of process occurs for people for many reasons. But I think overall, I'd like to start with the concept that the big picture is the earlier we start taking care of ourselves, working on ourselves, the longer the effect of that work. So, and I'm not just talking about exercise, although that's a huge component. Exercise, even like jogging and running when you're younger, and going on with that into later age. However, one of my concerns about jogging, for example, is the damage that potentially can be done to the joints, specifically the knees and the ankles especially, but also somewhat the hips, the hip area. Now, there's also a positive toward it in that our bones are what's called piezoelectric. They are crystallized structures, lattices, that are stimulated in terms of their development by pressure, by stress in the terms of physical stress. Pressure force being applied to them. Not huge amounts that will break them, obviously, but enough to stimulate this electrical process that then stimulates the repair of the bone. And so this is piezoelectricity that we're talking about with the bones. And so the activity is important. In fact, there are some studies showing that, in fact, just standing can improve your bone health. If you stand long term, you can improve your bone health because you are under the pressure of your own weight. Your own weight applying pressure on your bones, if you're standing over a long period of time, can help to keep your bone health long term. So you don't have to be, from the point of view of the bone health, jogging or running. In fact, simple walking is very, very beneficial, but also just the act of standing in place for a period of time. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever it may be. Half an hour may seem like a long time to be standing in one spot, but for some people, it's their lifestyle. It's their job even, in a lot of cases. And this can be very good for you in terms of bone health. Now, there are many other aspects that I want to get into, like, whether you're using certain drugs and whether that's affecting your bone health or your other kinds of health. But it's specifically in bone health, one of the drugs that's often used, or the drug types, including Fosamax, those drugs that are there to give you more bone density, actually give you more aged bone because you retain the aged bone. And you're not replenishing as much, so that it can actually cause real problems with your bone. In fact, if you're doing it because of osteoporosis, well, your bones can actually become more brittle when you're on a drug like that. That's an important thing to point out. It's a real strong side effect that's really countering the initial effect, that may last, a year or so, where you get this better bone density. But what happens is, long term, you're not upgrading your bone, and you have more aged bone. So by replenishing that, by doing things that help to repair and replace bone cells, you then are improving your bone mass. And that can include all the things I just mentioned about exercise, walking, standing, these kinds of things. Now, of course, with jogging or running, if you do too much of it especially, but in general, you're putting more pressure and stress on your knees, your ankles, your hips, that all support your torso. So that can be an issue and can lead to problems with your bones and bone mass, and with your joints in particular, is what I'm really referring to. I'm sorry about that. I got off track. So what we're talking about here is taking care of yourself, basically, making sure that you're doing things that help to replenish you, to repair your body, to keep having upgrades on your body structure, improving your body's specific structure. So by doing these kinds of things, by walking, by standing for periods of time, you're actually strengthening your body, strengthening your bones, and helping yourself. If you do too much of the jogging, running, you can actually damage your joints, and this can be counterproductive. Although you may be putting some pressure on your bones that may help the bones repair, depending on how much of it you're doing, you may also be damaging your joints. So it's better to do something more passive, like standing or walking. And when you're using, say, a treadmill, to use a treadmill at a speed where it's basically a fast-paced walk, not jogging. Although there is more give in a treadmill generally than there is, say, on concrete if you're walking on sidewalks or these kinds of things. So that give does help in terms of lessening the amount of damage to your joints. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. Now, another aspect, if we're focusing on bones and joints, because it is a big area for the idea of aging, is that you need to be giving yourself the right nutrition. You know, one of the things that we do, one of the things that's been one of the aspects of bone health that is often missed is, what are you doing in your diet? Are you having, green leafy vegetables? Are you eating foods that contain calcium and phosphorus? And are you doing it at a level that is natural to the human body? Because we need to balance those levels. We need silica, we need boron, we need many elements within our bones. But of course, the primary two are calcium and phosphorus. And it's supposed to be about a 1-to-1 ratio of calcium to phosphorus in your bones. So one of the habits in Western society in particular, and especially in the United States, is that a lot of people, sodas have been glorified in the United States. Coke is like another way of saying America, you know what I mean? It's that much associated with the United States. And Coke is horrible for your bones. Horrible. Phosphoric acid in it. If you drink Cokes on a regular basis, you're increasing the level of phosphorus in your bones. You can be increasing it to a dramatic level, like very much influencing the ratio of phosphorus to calcium, which should be 1-to-1, but you may be taking it up to maybe 5-to-1 or 6 or 8-to-1 on the phosphorus to calcium ratio. And that can be very damaging to your structure of your bones and weaken your bones and make them brittle. So one of the primary causes of osteoporosis and osteopenia in young folks, in children, even 12-year-olds nowadays, is the availability of sodas. Sodas have been causing a lot of these bone problems. Osteopenia, osteoporosis. Because of particularly the influence of the phosphoric acid. Now, in addition to that, the sugars, cane sugar, especially refined cane sugar, leaches minerals from your body. So in doing so, you're pulling many of those necessary nutrients that help to replenish your body, including your bones, but your whole body. So if you're consuming a lot of sugar, you're taking away a lot of the nutrition that you might be consuming. You might have a great diet except for those sweets, and be damaging your body because you're drawing those nutrients back out of your body with the sugar. So that can be a problem. So sweets are not a good thing. And one of the things that I've run across in my life, both personally with relatives as well as in general, is people, as they age, there's this tendency for a lot of folks to say, I've lived this long, I can eat whatever I want. Right? So I have this philosophy that we need to do what's best for us throughout our lives. And if we don't, we'll see the effects of that. The quality of life is reduced significantly if you don't take care of yourself. If you're not consuming the right nutrients, you're actually reducing your long-term quality of life. And aspects we know as aging will occur. So aspects of what we consider aging, like, it could be the bones, it could be, you may start to see issues with your organs, with your liver, your kidneys. Obviously, the high sugar levels would lead to problems with glucose control. So we're looking at things like hypoglycemia or diabetes or really long-term Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia, where consuming sweets has a very strong negative effect. And also there's an effect from the point of view of increasing that sugar in your bloodstream and potentially affecting secretion of insulin. And you may be seeing spikes in your insulin production because of consumption of sweets. The spikes may be increasing something called insulin resistance, where your cells don't respond immediately to the production of insulin, and therefore your pancreas is pushing out more and more insulin, trying to respond to the need to get the sugar levels down, and you get a surge of insulin that then drops your blood sugar very low. And when that occurs, then the brain, being a primary consumer of the sugars in your body, puts out signals to the rest of your body: need sugar, need sweets. And you start to crave them because of this cycle. And your low blood sugar, you're going to grab something to bring your sugar level back up. But what's also happening there is it's a stressor to your body, and you get an adrenal response. And that adrenal response is partly to replenish that sugar through the production of glucocorticoids that have glucose as a component of those molecules. So you're increasing your glucose level, and you get into this vicious cycle. So you're going through this cycle of highs and lows instead of a nice medium consistent flow of the hormones that keep your blood sugar balanced. So this leads to many situations that we can call aging as well. We get into the reduction of oxygen that happens, oxygen transfer from the bloodstream into your muscles. That oxygen transfer goes down when insulin goes up. So if you're producing a lot of insulin, you're not getting much oxygen, or not enough perhaps, to your muscles, into your body. And it becomes a real issue. And this also affects a ratio that's used to gauge, lung function. When you consume carbohydrates, you can affect your oxygen levels dramatically. And I'm not talking about good carbohydrates. What I call good carbohydrates are carbs that are from vegetables or fruit. Fruits, some of the higher glycemic index fruits perhaps can have some of this effect. However, most fruits and vegetables have a combination of fructose and glucose, and the fructose takes longer for your body to process. It has to go through your liver for the processing, etc. And this slows down that processing, versus grain starches. Grain starches are very damaging because the grains are glucose chains. Glucose is the lowest form of sugar. Glucose is a form that there is no further breaking down. So when you are consuming grain starches, you're getting a lot of sugar into your bloodstream, and sometimes very quickly. because those chains are already available at the glucose level. There's no breaking down necessary other than just mastication or chewing of the food, breaking down the molecules. And your body's going to do some further breaking down as it gets digested. But it doesn't have to go through the liver to be processed. There's not much work there. It's glucose, and it goes right into your bloodstream. So this is very damaging. It increases your insulin levels. You have more insulin more of the time. That is very damaging to your body, and you age dramatically because of that kind of thing. So what I call aging is actually a disease. It is a disease. Aging is a disease. When I look at the processes that we call aging, every one of them has to do with not treating the body correctly, not doing the things that are required to keep yourself youthful, and perhaps doing some things that are counterproductive at the same time. Many syndromes that occur that we can associate with aging include many of these aspects. That can be metabolic syndrome, for example, where cholesterol levels go up, blood sugar levels are elevated, or there's a high A1C or hemoglobin A1C, where there's a lot of variability in the blood sugar, and therefore insulin is a big factor. Now, there are other countering hormones that are helpful in that scenario that can be triggered by eating the right foods. So what am I talking about, right foods? Well, of course, fruits, vegetables, are a major part of that. Plant diet primarily, and then some proteins. Now, those proteins can be from plants as well. For example, pea protein is a very, very good protein, a very broad spectrum with many of the essential, if not all of the essential amino acids, and can be a very useful, valuable protein. But there are others, if you want to have some animal protein, how about whey powders, whey proteins? If you really are wanting to consume animal protein beyond that, then start with the less inflammatory animal proteins, like cold water wild caught fish, where it's been fished out of very cold environments where we have all of the wonderful omega-3 oils that are very anti-inflammatory. And then also a lot of those fish have very valuable nutrients in them, like vitamin D, astaxanthin, these kinds of things. Astaxanthin is a wonderful antioxidant, very, very potent antioxidant. So when we deplete the nutrients by eating sweets or a lot of grains, including wheat, bread, pasta, rice, corn, potatoes, that's white potato, these kinds of things, we are causing some damage there, and we're depleting nutrients. And when those nutrients are depleted, a lot of those nutrients that we're depleting are antioxidant nutrients. And why that's important is because there's damage being done there. It's called free radical damage, or reactive oxygen species, that are causing the stripping off of electrons on the molecules that are within your body and many areas of your body. Particularly of particular importance are the blood vessels, where that kind of damage causes the buildup of plaque, because your body is shooting out LDL cholesterol, low density lipoprotein, to do a repair job on those vessels. And this is what's called the bad cholesterol. cholesterol, but it's actually not a bad thing. It's actually doing repair to your blood vessels. The bad thing is the sweets and starches. That's the bad thing. The LDL is doing repair on your body. But what happens if you do these kinds of things long term, you consume these kinds of foods, you're creating a lot of damage there, and there's a lot more repair, and you see more LDL cholesterol. So the LDL going up is not some disease in and of itself. It is a response from your body trying to repair the damage that's been done by your consumption of garbage. How's that? There's a good term. Because that's what you're doing. It's garbage in, garbage out, computer term, right? You consume a bunch of garbage in the sense of a lot of starchy foods, a lot of sweets. You're going to be doing damage to your blood vessels. And then that damage needs to be repaired. And your body's approach to repairing it is to work your liver producing LDL cholesterol to try to repair the damage. So the conventional approach is to give you statins when your cholesterol is too high. Well, statins actually work to shut down some of the function of your liver to reduce your LDL cholesterol. So it's really artificially reducing that LDL cholesterol. Yes, they are preventative. They are helpful in some ways with preventing cardiovascular problems, maybe even blockages. However, another approach is to give your body what it needs, give yourself a plant-based diet, clean out all that crap that's in your body, help to repair your body by giving it the right nutrition, help to repair your blood vessels, lots of antioxidants to take care of that oxidation, the damage that's been done by the very nasty diet that you may have been consuming, and turn that around. And that, folks, is not aging. That is damage you've done to your body by eating the wrong stuff. So this part of, this concept of aging and all of these scenarios and syndromes coming as a result of aging is really not doing us any service. It's not good to see things this way. It's actually very damaging that we see things this way. It actually keeps us from doing the right things. And if, folks are going to a physician and getting drugs for this to take care of the symptoms, they're still not dealing with the root cause. And so a large part of the focus of my practice is to focus on the root cause, to look at the underlying disorders as I've been describing, and to address them in a way that you're actually reversing those situations, and to help to address those issues in a way that actually turns back the clock a little bit, helps your body be more youthful, if we want to call it that. Again, that's getting into your cardiovascular system, your bloodstream, and the damage that you may have done with your diet. Exercise is certainly an important aspect of it as well. Helping to get that blood flowing, helping to improve your bloodstream, your circulation, helping to, by doing that, keep the vessels clearer of plaque buildup and this kind of thing. And another aspect is the aspect on the function of your mind, the brain function. Looking at situations like Alzheimer's, dementia, Lewy body, all these kinds of scenarios are related, at least partially, to consumption of sweets. And we can address that as part of how we approach those issues. Another aspect is to look at the neurotransmitters, the production of neurotransmitters. Now here again, we're looking at root cause, but at the same time somewhat symptomatic, because some of the action that occurs in your brain relies on the activity of neurotransmitters. And of particular importance is the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. So acetylcholine helps with cognition. It helps with your thinking, helps you think clearly, and helps with your memory, helps with focus. And this can be affected by many things. Consumption of sweets, because you're depleting nutrients. You could be depleting B vitamins, for example. Well, some of those B vitamins are important to the production of your neurotransmitters, particularly choline, which is a B vitamin. Acetylcholine, as the molecular name implies, has a combination of an acetyl radical and choline. Choline is the B vitamin. So if you're depleting your choline, you may be depleting it to the level that it starts to affect your neurotransmitters, and therefore your thinking, your memory, your cognition, your ability to think on the spot, as well as remember things. So part of the approach to that is to help with acetylcholinesterase inhibitors that are natural, not the drugs like Aricept or whatever that D name is, that it comes, diazepam or whatever. It's to address it by using natural extracts that are also acetylcholinesterase inhibitors. Now, acetylcholinesterase is the esterase part of that, tells you that that is an enzyme. So it's acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter. Esterase is the enzyme that helps to eat up the acetylcholine after you've transmitted in your nerves, in your brain, the messages, you know. So you get this communication going through your synapses. The acetylcholine is produced as a part of that. That's the neurotransmitter. When that has finished its job, some of that is hanging out, still in your brain. What can happen, or still in the area of the synapses and so on. So what can happen is that your acetylcholinesterase goes in and eats all that up and depletes it, and so now you need to start over. You know, the communication starts over. So with an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, we're keeping your body from, or that specific enzyme from, consuming the leftover acetylcholine, which makes more available for you to use in your thought processes. So this can help scenarios such as dementia, Alzheimer's, and just with thought, focus, you know, just the sharpness of wit and these kinds of things can be improved by improving your nutrition, giving yourself those radicals, acetyl radical from N-acetylcysteine, for example, and choline from phosphatidylcholine, or from the conversion of phosphatidylserine within your body to phosphatidylcholine to produce the choline. Also, there are foods that have good levels of choline. Like if you don't overcook your eggs, you're getting some choline, things like that. So if we're not consuming good foods, we're not getting the nutrients. If we're consuming bad foods, we're depleting the nutrients. So either scenario is going to get us the result of what we call aging. But again, aging is just basically a syndrome that is representing what we view as aging in terms of our cultural acceptance of this phenomenon, this disease, this syndrome. But actually, it has to do with not taking care of ourselves. It has to do with not taking charge of our health, not focusing on that, focusing more on making the bucks for, you know, the business owner, or focusing more on doing, you know, doing your best at your job than taking care of yourself. And not that you shouldn't focus on doing your best at your job, but there also needs to be a focus on taking care of yourself, giving yourself the right nutrition, not eating garbage, not joining in that mad rush to the donuts when somebody brings donuts in, you know, not drinking 5-10 cups of coffee every day. All these crazy things that you see in especially in corporate or industrial environments where this happens a lot, you know, where that's kind of the culture. You know, I even have some totally clueless, is the only way to describe it, reps that show up in my office every once in a while that will be bringing us donuts, cupcakes, things like that, that are just totally garbage, just garbage, just gonna turn the body around, make you feel like crap, and make you weak, make you help to age you, if you want to use the term, help to hasten your demise every time you do that. So if you walk through the aisles of cupcakes and donuts and things like that, and you crave those things, you're doing the wrong things. You're eating the wrong foods. If you have cravings for sweets on a regular basis, chances are you are eating sweets. You may not even realize it. They may be in the form of starches, grain starches. But you need to take a look at your diet. You need to look at perhaps also supplementing. Now, I use the term supplementing to refer to nutritional sources, but when I refer to supplements, I'm thinking of over-the-counter. An even better approach is to use nutraceuticals. And nutraceuticals are what I use in practice as part of what I use because of their effectiveness. They are extremely effective, very well absorbed. These are not over-the-counter nutrition. And I've had conversations with other physicians about this that poo-poo the use of vitamins, you know, and I'll reference, you know, articles from the New York Times or whatever, where they've done, you know, an investigation and say that people are wasting their money on these things. Well, to a certain extent, I agree. If you're buying the less potent versions of those things, you're going to the chain drugstore and buying their chain version of the nutrients, you're probably not getting much. And on top of that, they're probably not well digested. They're not bioavailable, is the term. They're not available to your biology to absorb very well. Whereas what we use in practice are nutraceuticals that are very bioavailable, that are very effective. And of course, we don't just throw a bunch of nutraceuticals at you and say, have a nice day. What I do is a fair amount of diagnostic testing to understand exactly where your needs are and then address those directly. And so this whole concept of aging really needs to be reevaluated. Okay, now let's get down into the molecular level. Okay, so not too detailed, just sort of conceptually. So we have these things called telomeres. This is one aspect of aging as well. Telomeres are part of the DNA molecule, and they're essentially a tail on the end of your DNA. And that tail is made up of substrate materials for the DNA itself. So the DNA, each time it goes through reproduction, uses some of the material from the telomere. And when it does that, that telomere gets a little shorter. And so over time, these telomeres shorten incrementally until they reach a certain limit where basically the materials run out. And then that is a form of programmed cell death because reproduction cannot occur, and therefore the cell will die off. And so that happens as a natural process. However, that is not a given. We can reverse that. We can slow it. We can stop it. There are ways that have been well researched now that we can address the shrinking of our telomeres, and we can affect aging at the molecular level. And I think it's important to realize that we're in a different age now, using that term age, not a pun, but that we can actually see improvement in our bodies in terms of aging. We can reverse that clock to a certain extent. So we have basically on a top-down level, we have physiological age and we have chronological age. Just because you're 65 doesn't mean you have to be, granny with a cane wobbling down the street. I know 60-year-olds, I know 70-year-olds, I know 80-year-olds that can challenge 25, 30-year-olds. There are ways of being very healthy at a later age. And it's not about living forever. It's about quality of life. It's about living well, living youthfully, enjoying your life. That's where I'm coming from here. And, aging is something we don't have to accept as being that old model that we're used to seeing every day. We see these folks who are basically falling apart to a certain extent and having all these issues. They don't just have to accept them. And the problem with the conventional approach that we have in place is that it's treating the symptoms, but doesn't get to the root cause. And when we don't get to the root cause, then we don't actually reverse the disorder. We simply keep its symptoms at bay. So we feel a little better while the same processes continue to occur and we continue to fall apart, essentially. Our bodies just don't recover the way they could if we directed our focus on the underlying cause or causes of these developments. So you can see from everything I've been talking about, that's really the focus of my practice and the way I approach things. And, this is, again, part of the philosophy of a path to wellness. I want everyone, including myself, to be on a path to wellness. And, as much as I can help people do that, that's really not only my goal in life, but my joy in life. I love seeing these results that we have every day. I mean, I have patients on a daily basis who are ecstatic at the results they're seeing because they've never seen anything like it. They've gone to physicians for a dozen years, maybe a dozen different physicians or more, and never had this kind of focus on getting well. It's always been about not being sick. Very different. It's not about healthcare is truly caring for your health, not just keeping you from being sick. You know what I mean? It's not about just addressing, oh, I've got the flu, or I've got a cold, or even heart issues, or cardiovascular issues, or blood sugar regulation issues, or cholesterol, which is a symptom in and of itself. It's not even anything related to a disorder. Any of these scenarios, all of them have to do with some underlying cause. They are diseases in and of themselves, really relating largely to, if not completely, to not treating ourselves well enough, early enough in our lives, not giving ourselves the nutrition we need throughout our lives, eating foods that are malnutritious, in other words, that deplete our nutrition, or that are deficient in nutrition, for example, fast food, right? Really nasty stuff for the most part. If you're living your life on McDonald's, stop it. Stop it. If you're eating burgers and fries and a Coke every day, or every other day, or once a week, or once a month, stop it. Don't eat that stuff. Have some real food. Have some plant food. Go to the vegetable section of the supermarket. See what fruits and vegetables you like. Consume them. There are options along those lines too. Like, for example, if you like pasta at this point, you've got this, you crave pastas, you crave these starchy, sweet foods. Go to something like spaghetti squash. Make yourself some spaghetti with spaghetti squash. Spaghetti squash. Glycemic index of spaghetti is somewhere around a 53. The glycemic index of spaghetti squash is around a 3. I mean, the significance is dramatic in terms of the glycemic load, the amount of sugar you're putting into your body. And it can be much more healthy for you. Plus, you have all these nutrients in the squash that you don't have in the pasta. So, you can take spaghetti squash, you cut it in half, you lay it down in the oven, you bake it for half hour, 45 minutes, take it out, scrape it with a spoon or a fork or something. It comes out all stringy. If it's still kind of firm, you can throw it on a steamer, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, make it a little more limp and more like spaghetti, and then throw it on your plate and throw some marinara sauce on it, lots of antioxidants in marinara, and go with that. Now, that's not even touching the issue of organics and organic foods and lack of pesticides and these kinds of things, because pesticides are a big issue too, and other toxic loading substances that we're exposed to are affecting our health as well. Yet these are root causes. Again, these are root causes to these effects that we see, that we interpret as aging. It's our interpretation. It's a model that we're used to. We see it as a natural process. There is somewhat of a natural process going on. Like if we don't address the telomeres, at a certain point, the telomeres run out, cells start to die. They may start dying in our organs. Then gradually that starts to affect organ function, things like that. That is a scenario that is natural. It's not a fun thing, but it is a natural process. Yet, if anything is aging, that would be it. Yet, it doesn't have to be. We have substances that can be in our diet that we can use. There's herbal medicines that address these things, and there are extracts that are becoming available that address the reversal and the damage that are done to telomeres. And there's a lot more to this. In fact, I could probably do another show on this. But there are things to do with the DNA tightness, the tightness of fit of DNA. As we age, one of the things we see is that there's sort of this loosening of DNA, and this allows for some processes that can be damaging. In the transcription, things can become transcribed inaccurately within our cells, and then there can be aberrant processes that occur, mutations, things like that. And so that's another aspect, along with the telomeres. There are also simply the debris resulting from waste being produced in the cells that builds up if you're not eating cleanly, if you're not doing what you need to do to detox your body, to draw out that debris from the cells, to cleanse your body, then that becomes an issue with regard to aging. So aging is more of something that we are seeing as a result of damage being done to our bodies than anything. There are ways of opposing that aging process. And there are ways of improving our quality of life and, being able to take on a lifestyle of a quote unquote younger person. We can do that. So hopefully I've given you some insight into the thought about what we call aging, because aging is a syndrome, a disease. We just have not been addressing it as such. The majority of the things that we consider aging are actually not necessary as we become longer in years. The majority of those things can be reversed, and the majority of them have to do with how we take care of our health, how we give ourselves nutrition, what quality of nutrition we're giving ourselves, etc. And much can be done to help in all of those areas that we call aging. So you've been listening to A Path to Wellness on rhinoonair.com, WSPF-DB.com, from beautiful downtown St. Petersburg, Florida. And I'm Dr. Christopher Jackson, PhD, DOM, Florida. And if you would like to reach us at A Path to Wellness, you can either give us a call at 727-329-9637, or you can take a look at our website at www.aptw.net. And it's been a pleasure talking about this subject, and we'll catch up with you next time.